Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans for fans, where all the content is absolutely free. Tonight, as always, we're coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering. Now, I'll be your host this evening, and we'll be looking back at a massively convincing win against Livingston yesterday at Ibrox. But before we get into that, I'd like to encourage you to visit the Gersnet website. Not only do we have our main website with a host of quality articles and online museum, but it also hosts our popular forums, which are a great place to keep up to date with the latest Rangers news and discussion. Now, tonight, and as always, we are live on YouTube, and we'd ask that you continue to spread the word amongst your friends and family, share the pod on social media, subscribe to the channel, as well as stop by the forums and join in the chat there too. Now, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers and Gersnet for a number of years, and we're delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They've also got a stunning executive lounge in the Ibrox main stand, and for more information on that, you can email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Now, joining me this evening is one of the OGs of the Gersnet stable, Mr. Colin Armstrong. Colin, how you doing, sir?
Sorry, just unmuting there. Rob, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, how are you? I mean, obviously, it wasn't the best 90 minutes of my life yesterday, but, got through it and we got the 3 points. But, yeah, doing well.
It's another weekend where the football hasn't ruined it, thankfully, which is good. And from one of the old guard to one of the new guard, the newest kid in the block, Jamie Martin. How you doing, Jamie?
Very well, guys. Very well.
Good. So we'll obviously do a bit of a review on Livi. We'll maybe get some thoughts from both you guys on a little bit of controversy during the game, maybe. If we decide we want to talk about that, have a wee dive into the managers post-match. But then it'd be great to get a wee bit of a commentary for both of you on your first impressions. But I guess, Jamie, we'll start off with the Livi game to begin with, and I think the big news coming into the game was about the injuries that we were actually facing. You know, John Sutton and Derek Cornelius were going to be out, which meant we had the prospect of a centre back pairing of Nasser Jiga and the really seen Emmanuel Fernandez. I think it was an interesting one, and let's face it, we needed to see more of Fernandez anyway, but. You know, what were your thoughts coming into that game with the prospect of two fairly inexperienced, when we look at the Scottish game, centre halves, and certainly one of them that hasn't exactly covered themselves in glory in the appearances that we've seen so far?
Yeah, I'm just glad we were playing the bottom of the league team. When I saw that Suter was out and I saw Cornelius was out, obviously that's his kind of favoured pairing at the back, and has been a wee bit more of recent times. But however, listen, that's why you go and get these players. And, Fernandez, to be fair to him, I thought he'd done all right. I mean, I'm not going to say that we lit up the world, because it wasn't a great performance. I thought after the Dundee game, that was probably the first game that I thought that we looked as if we really bossed the game from start to finish. And I thought, we should go against Livingston. And the next couple of league games were kind to us in terms of we were playing the teams that get elevated to the SPL in Livingston and Falkirk next weekend. So, yeah, my alarm bells were ringing when I heard that Suter was obviously kind of injured. Not that he's been fabulous either this season. Fernandez scored a great goal from a set piece. I don't know if that's anything to do with the magnificent set piece coach coming straight in. But that was old school to me. Obviously, Tav's great ball in. Big fellas, listen, if he doesn't win a ball in the end, it comes in, there's something wrong. He's 6'5". He's an absolute animal. He should be winning them balls. And it's just nice to see us winning, balls at corners. And I just think we need to be more aggressive in each box, attacking balls, and especially in our own box. But it was one of them ugly wins. 5-6 weeks ago, we would have took that. But going into, we won 3 in the spin. Now, I'm not getting carried away, because I look at the opposition, barring Hibs away, we have played the 3 teams at the bottom of the league. So I'm not getting carried away with myself. I think a little bit of that, I'm being mindful of that. I'm being mindful of a new coach coming in. the players they get a response for 3 or 4 games. And I'm hoping what I saw yesterday isn't the start of players just dipping form a wee bit with the new coach coming in. But we look shaky at the back again. You know, that ball over the top, that Pittman, he drives the ball for 60 yards. We take the lead, obviously, on that corner where the big fella gets us in front. And again, we look shaky at the back. And I've got to say, every time Giga plays for me, I don't think we've got any confidence in that lad. I've got nothing against the boy, but I just don't think he's Rangers class. It showed in the semi-final against Celtic. For me, he should have been dragged at half-time. And then he goes and starts in the next game, and I was like, what is he doing? Is it, you know, I know we're kind of lightweight at the centre-back, but for me, the formation doesn't work like that yesterday. The 4 at the back is a no-go for me. It doesn't allow Magoma and Tav to excel going forward. If they're asked to defend, we struggle. I think we're much better as a 3-5-2 with 2 up front. I don't like the 1 up front at all, particularly at home. I think that just sends a message to other teams saying, we're a bit frightened here. We're a bit cautious. I'd like him to be a bit more on the front foot and play 2 up top. We look far more dangerous. And it showed when Miovski came on with Danilo up front. The 2 of them looked better in the second half. But yeah, it's shaky at the back still. It's you know, 1 ball over the top done us, and that's happened in numerous occasions with the Giga. He's caught wrong side. That's schoolboy defending for me. It should be goal side. Some rules are defending us. Get goal side. Talk to your other centre back. Most teams are playing 1 up front with us now. So 1 should be picking up and 1 goes spare. But Fernandez, he's about 20 yards on the left-hand side when that ball's coming from a left-back area of Livingston. You know, it's deep in their half. It's travelling 60 yards. How he's not across covering him. All right, he's young. He's got to learn that. And I think that's a big problem at centre-back with playing Fernandez. He's obviously clearly got something about him. He's got the size. He's got the physique. His positional sense, you can see, isn't there. I think if they get a centre-back that's really experienced next to him, then I think you can maybe see the best of him. They need somebody next to him that can really communicate and be a leader. And I think that's what they're missing at the back.
Absolutely, and I think that's part of the problem, isn't it, Colin, with injuries to Souttar and Cornelius, who are more experienced centre halves. But I think it highlights just how bad the window was when it comes to once those 2 are away. We've not really got much cover at that centre half area. The only other options available to Danny Rohl are going to be bringing Nsiala in, who is inexperienced when it comes to senior football, given that last season was the first taste that he had of it. And then you've got Sterling, who injury prone and doesn't really have the resilience to maybe play 4, 5, 6 games in a row. So I guess, how do you see that area of the pitch playing out over the next few weeks, Colin? Are we going to be stuck with Giga and Fernandez in the short term, or do you think Sterling or Nsiala can make a bit of a press to come back into the team?
I mean, I mean, for a start, the injuries came at the worst possible time, I think. You know what I mean? I think there has been a feeling that, you know, he's had a positive start domestically, Danny Rohl. Obviously, we've started to chip away at Hearts-Lead. We nearly caught up with Celtic until they got that last minute goal or last second goal yesterday. You know, so it's that 3-4 wins in a row. Is it 4?
4.
Yeah. 4.
So I mean, I think yesterday was the worst performance of the 4 victories so far. I don't think we controlled the game well at all.
Yeah.
We looked really disjointed. Obviously. And I think part of that comes down to the injuries we received, you know, because we've lost our first choice centre half pairing, so we looked a bit a bit ropey at the back, and we've lost Mikey Moore, who just looked like he was coming into a game, you know. And I mean, his performance up at Dundee a couple of weeks ago, I thought he was outstanding that day, you know, and everything was coming through him.
Yeah.
So to lose the 3 of them for 5-6 weeks, you know, I was kind of the feeling that Rohl might do enough for us to just keep in touching distance, say both Celtic and Hearts, get to the window. You know, the club have already said we're going to be active in January. I would suspect that Danny Rohl has, you know, candidates in mind in terms of who he wants and the areas that he wants to strengthen. and it was like, just get to January. So it now looks like a bit of a harder ask to do that, because of the injury situation and where they are, specifically the centre half thing hurts us defensively. We've lost a big creative player in Mikey Moore. Next week, I know it's only Falkirk, but they're only a couple of points behind us. They're flying now, that could be a tricky game. December's a tricky month, So I would suspect, one thing I will say about Danny Rohl is I'm finding it hard to lock down what it is his system is and his formation and his shape, because players' positions are, I'm not saying that this in a negative way, but when I was looking at the shape in the first half, I was like, right, well, that's a 4-2-3-1. When he brought on Danilo, I couldn't quite work out. When he brought on Miofsky, I couldn't quite work out what the shape was. I was trying to. I was like, is it 4-4-2? Is it? It looked to me like it was still the same shape with Danilo at the number 10, but it seems to me he encourages, players to play in different positions. You know what I mean? He seems really flexible in terms of what he wants his players to do. So, I'm confident that he can get results and all the rest of it. I just, the thought of going through that run in December, because I think we've got something like 7 games. We're away to Tynecastle, we're up at Tannadice. I think we've got Hibs at home, and obviously that builds up to the game against Celtic in January. I just feel it could be a big ask now not to have some form of dunt along the road, given the injuries that we now have and the players that we're going to have to play in key positions. But, something I've been quite impressed with Danny Rohl so far. So you never know. He might just be able to get something going. He could go back to 3 at the back if he brings in Enciala, and that can give him options in terms of freeing up an extra attacker and stuff like that. But I was confident going into this run after the first 3 games with Danny Rohl domestically, when he got those 3 wins under his belt. I kind of thought, we can get to January and still be in touch with them. I'm a wee bit nervous about that now, because those 3 injuries have hurt us in the worst possible area. They've hurt us in the centre of defence, and we've lost our most creative player. So I think it could be a long few weeks now.
And I think you could see that actually at the weekend, because you look at that midfield 3 and front 3. It was Raskin, Dio, and Asgard, which you could argue looks good on paper as a midfield 3, with Gassama, Ant-Man, and Danilo up front. But I think the frustrating thing for me was, certainly in that first half, the game kind of passed Raskin, Dio, and Asgard by. It wasn't as if any one of them was putting a stamp on that in midfield, and it is frustrating because you've got Raskin, Belgian international, can be a great player on his day, but from the start of the season hasn't really shown up in a Rangers jersey, and he was so slack with the ball, which was the most frustrating thing at the weekend. Dio kind of usually flits in and out of these kind of games anyway, where it is more of a physical roll the sleeves up and more about the working side of it. And then Asgard, shows a nice couple of touches, but then doesn't really do much. And I think in a game like this, where Livi are going to be setting up in 2 deep banks of players, they're quite happy to give us the ball and ask us, right, come and break us down then and see what you can do. And I guess these are the types of games where we're needing more from those front 6 to be able to kind of move, short passing, try and get some movement in those lines from a Livi point of view. Jamie, and we're just not really seeing it from any of them. That front 6, you could quite easily have removed at half time and stuck another 6 players on there.
Yeah, I think Colin was right earlier. I think Moore, particularly against Kilmarnock at home, our first game when we won under Rowe in the league, we won that quite comfortably against Kilmarnock, and he looked good then. Then he went into the Hibs game, looked decent again, and then he went into Dundee and he went on to another level against Dundee. He just looked like a different player, playing in the 10. I know he was starting on the right, but it looked as if he was getting a little bit of a free licence to roam a bit, and he looked a bit of a nuisance. He was picking up wee spaces in between lines and pockets, getting plenty of the ball, and he looked, well, by far our most creative player. And I was pleased, to be honest, because he's been through a wee bit of a rough time. The boy, he's a young lad, and a lot was expected of him. And to be honest, he get played out of position under Russell Martin. There's no doubt about that. The boy's not a wide player. You've got to play him as a number 10. let him float behind the striker and just let him do his thing. Let him roam about and let other players defend for him. The midfield is still a problem for me. I just don't think Asgard and Ant-Man. I mean, Ant-Man played 45 minutes his first game. Looked a player. Looked as if we were going to get something out of a winger that had pace and, you know, was going to get in behind and get crosses in the box and be a real threat getting forward on the right-hand side. Asgard is the same. He's only played for 45 minutes against Dundee United. Looked a world beater in that game. You went, scored an absolute belter at goal. And his touches and his awareness and all that, you go, there is a player in there. But consistency it's just not there for these guys. How many chances do they get? I mean, for me, Ant-Man and Asgard have started a lot of games this season, and they've really not done it, you know, consistently. Nowhere near it for me. And I'll be honest, I think there's players on the bench, better players.
Yeah.
I think they're more consistent. I think Conor Barron has to play in front of the back three. Anytime Conor Barron plays, and we've had a back three, we've had clean sheets. And that says it itself. That wee guy covers blades of grass. He does the dirty stuff for other folk, and I would play him in front of the back three, and I would have Raskin and Deal. Maybe, and you've got to listen. You've got to even consider Bezrami after yesterday. I think Bezrami's got something about him. I just don't think he's had enough game time. I hope he maybe uses this game on Thursday night and gives these guys some minutes to prove themselves and go and take your chance. I think there's four players on that bench for me that could really be starting the games. Barron, Lyle Cameron, Curtis and Bezrami. They must feel aggrieved at sitting on that bench watching these guys getting picked week in, week out when they're not doing it. I would be, if I was in their position, I'd be pissed off. I really would. I'd be asking myself questions. How are these getting a game every week? And it's plain and simple to see. The hierarchy that's brought these guys in are trying to prove themselves right. And to be honest, some of them have had far too many games to prove themselves, in my view.
I think it's a fair point, Colin, because it's, you know, certainly in the context of Finlay Curtis, he's the one that I scratch my head about. That, you know, you look at how out of form Gassama is at the moment. You know, he's capable of moments of sheer quality cutting in and scoring. But even yesterday, the first 5 or 10 minutes, I thought both him and Ant-Man had their opposite fullbacks on toast. I thought this is going to be great. They're going to be beating them all day long, getting to the byline and cutting balls back. But then all of a sudden, the two of them just looked as if they ran out of ideas. You know, Gassama has a fantastic chance in that second half.
Where he's doing there. Yeah.
He could hit it first time across the keeper.
Yeah.
He cuts back and then he doesn't even hit it. I bet if Finlay Curtis is in that position, knowing his natural finishing ability that we've seen in the B team with the amount of goals he scored and the contribution that he's made this season, he's more likely to stick that in the back of the net. And I think the one thing you're going to get from the likes of Curtis, Cameron and Barron is probably a bit more of that work rate and chasing back, which is what you need in a game like this.
What's Barron is he scored a goal against St Mirren. It's exactly the same. It just dropped him. And he just hit it first time. And he took his chance. Now, I think I was looking at the stats the other week there. I think he's only played numerous minutes all season. And he's got as many goals as our forwards. Miovski, Danilo, and our big fella up front that cost £8 million. Finlay Curtis has scored more goals than the three of them. And he's played about 10% of the minutes they've played.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And Colin, what about your thoughts on that bit?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Rob, in terms of, you know, when you look at that front four yesterday, so you've got Danilo. I mean, he does things and fits and starts, and you get the odd goal at him here and there. And just when you think he's maybe turned the corner and going to be consistent for us, he comes in a performance like yesterday and offers. I mean, he offered next to nothing yesterday, you know. So he could have been off at half time yesterday. I think Gassama could have been off at half time yesterday. Asgard. I mean, I was really looking for something from Asgard yesterday. I think there's a player there with Asgard. I really do, but it's just not. affecting games enough. You know what I mean? There's wee signs here and there. He done a couple of good wee things early on in the first half yesterday, and then disappeared. And that's kind of you're looking at Mikey Moore getting injured and getting out the team. You know, Asgard should be looking at that and thinking, well, here's my chance to get a consistent run in the team. You know, playing in that sort of number 10 behind the main striker and being the guy that's feeding the wingers and feeding the forward. And I don't think he done enough yesterday at all. He came off at half time, so that tells you everything you need to know. I mean, of all of them, of those four players, the only one that I thought done okay in the first half was Ant-Man. You know, he lacks a bit of quality with his final ball, but I thought his work ethic was decent. You know, he was trying things, but the other three, they offered nothing. And I still have a feeling that night against Bruges at Ibrox has spooked quite a few of these players, the young boys especially. And, you know, I know we all want Rangers to be winning trophies and there's expectations there and all the rest of it, but sometimes I think we, as a fan base, we could be a bit kinder. You know what I mean? You can have expectations without storming out the ground after 15 minutes and making the place really toxic. And I just wonder because, I mean, Gassama looked like a world beater up until that point. And he's had his moments, but he's been nowhere near the sort of levels he were before that game. You know, Ant-Man looked like a decent player before that night. I think 3 or 4 of them just looked at that when, you know, folk were leaving the ground after 15 minutes and there was so much abuse and all the rest of it, and they've thought, whoa. And I don't think we have strong enough leaders in the team to help these boys through these moments. You know, I mean, you look at Celtic yesterday, who gets the goal in the last minute when everybody else has let them down? Their captain steps up and scores the goal for them. You know what I mean? And I just think boys like Tav, Raskin, Dio, even Suter lack that. They're established players, but they lack that real sort of leadership, determination, whatever you want to call it, to drag teams to results. You know what I mean? And get the rest of the boys on board. So I do think that some of them are a little bit playing within themselves because they just don't want the abuse and the shouts coming for the stands. But they need to find a way around it because, you know, I mean, as I said, I mean, I think Asgard will be okay for Thursday night because I don't think Bajrami's he's not in the European squad, is he?
No, I don't think so. No.
But I think for next week against Falkirk, you know what I mean? I would be looking at, if he's going with a 4-2-3-1 again, I would be looking at Bajrami at that number 10 and seeing what he offers us because I think Asgard's played himself out the team now. I mean, I do like him. I like the boy, but he needs to be producing more. He's just not affecting games enough.
And I think on the Bajrami front, you'd mentioned it, Jamie. It was only really 20 minutes we saw of him, but I think it was just the change in attitude. I think from him, you know, he wanted the ball. There was a few occasions where he was trying to move it forward quickly and looking for Miovski, who was making the run and playing that diagonal, and that's where that kind of Gassama chance comes from. It's Bajrami ball that eventually breaks to Miovski, and Miovski pings it to Gassama, and that was where he initially made, you know, the first signs of promise when he first came into the team, was on that left hand side, and then it all came out that he was a 10. But I think if he can knuckle down, then he's going to certainly be a bit more of a better option than Asgard will be in that position, I guess. But the other point I think that we maybe forget sometimes is that Danny Rohl's not really had a lot of time to try and imprint his vision or idea of what he wants this team to do. The first thing he had to do was come in and make us solid. I think we can tick the box, injuries aside, and what's going to happen now. But he has initially come in and made us a bit more solid when it comes to that league form. The interesting thing for me is going to be is how we can tweak that and get his playing better going forward now, because we're back into this bloody rhythm of weekend, midweek, weekend, midweek, weekend, midweek. So he's not going to have much time to try and unpick, I guess, some of the damage that's been done by previous managers. And like Colin's just mentioned, the impact that some of those performances have had in the team. So I guess we're probably going to need to prepare ourselves for a few more performances, maybe like yesterday. And as long as we continue to get the results, it's still kind of a bit of a step in the right direction, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, results is key to any team. You need to be winning your games, particularly at home. As I said, I think we need to be more positive at home and start 2 up front. I don't like this. I can understand the 1 up front away from home at certain games. I mean, the alarming thing for us is we've still to go to the top 6 teams away from home. Let's not kid ourselves. We've played the bottom teams since Rohl's come in. The only 2 games that have been a real test have been the semi-final against Celtic and Roma. But as you said, with Mikey Moore missing, I mean, the stats the other day there, I think you mentioned it earlier, Rob. I think Rangers had 73% possession. And what's alarming is Livingston had 9 shots on goal. So did we.
Yeah.
We had 2 on target. They had 2 on target. That's the bottom of the league team coming to Ibrox and getting the same stats as us in front of goal. That's not good enough. It's as simple as that. You're talking about a team that's bottom of the league here. They've won 1 game, drawn 5. And to be honest, hey, if it wasn't for Jack Butland, again, pulling us out the you-know-what, he goes down to a save yesterday after Tav gets done on the edge of our own box, gets done, boys in, and that's getting in. If Butland doesn't save that, they're going 2-1 up. And then it's squeaky bum time for us again, going, oh no, 2-1's in, and we're in it, we're chasing a game. And we, as you say, but we're not creating enough chances that you think that we're going to actually trouse teams. And we should be trousing teams like Livingston. No disrespect. See these teams like Kilmarnock were played Livingston. All right, Hibs is a little bit of a different kettle of fish away from home. That was a great result, 1-0 away from home. But the last 3 games we've won, we should be winning the games. We should be trousing teams like that. They should be coming to Ibrox. Teams like that years ago were beat before they even came to Ibrox. But they need to look at the whole setup. I mean, defensively, I remember being in the reserve team years ago, and I used to always watch the first team training with the likes of Big Butcher and Graham Roberts, Big Goff and that. And Graham Souness and Walter would do shadow play with him all the time. And what I mean with shadow play is they would put a ball somewhere on the pitch and have an 11 reserve players playing against the 11 that was starting on a Saturday. And they would run through certain scenarios, depending on where the ball was in the pitch, where you should have been in relation to the ball. And I'm going back to our centre defenders here. Our centre defenders, even get back to when Suter was playing with Giga, there's numerous occasions they were too wide apart. You could have drove a double-decker bus through them at times. They need to get closer. One match, years ago, teams used to play 2 up top, and Big Butcher and Goff would take a man each. Not even a problem. 1 each. They dealt with it. Now that most teams are playing 1 up front, and we've got maybe 3 defenders. Yesterday, admittedly, we had 2. But 1 of them should be picking up, and 1 goes spare. That's simple, basic defending. I just don't get how they can't get that right. And I don't get why you can't read a ball that's come 60 yards and get across and cover.
I think it comes back to that proactive v reactive, innit? We always seem to be on the back foot. We react to things rather than thinking about the positioning that we need to be in to kind of snuff the danger out. And I think that the goal for Livi certainly was a prime example of that. And unfortunately, we're not going to be left with many options for the next few weeks in that position unless you kind of maybe move Tav into a centre-back role and you bring somebody like an Aaron's back in as part of a back 3. But it's still going to leave two fairly inexperienced defenders playing alongside Tav. And Colin, Jamie was right to call it that wee moment where Tav gets out muscled, but we equally then need to give him a wee bit of credit for the ball he played over for Miovski, for the clear onside goal that took VAR absolute ages to decide was a goal. And it kind of got us out of jail, to be honest, because again, I think everybody in the ground, when they saw that flag go up, just assumed that, all right, okay, that's it, it's 1 each, we're not going to get it. And then all of a sudden, VAR actually gives us the goal. I don't know what your thoughts were at that point. Was it a sigh of relief like me that thankfully we've taken the lead? Because I don't really thought we were going to score any other way, to be honest. It was a tough gig.
And I mean, it was. I mean, I always feel when you get into sort of late November, December, January, even February. Those are the days it gets harder to go to the football. You know what I mean? It's either freezing cold or it's blowing a gale and pissing the rain. And you know, the amount of times, even when we've had successful teams in the past, the amount of times you go to games at this sort of time of the year, you know, the team doesn't play particularly well, and it's just about getting the 3 points, and that's what we've done yesterday. And so for that, you know, Danny Rohl and his players deserve credit. On a day when we didn't perform well, and one of those days when you're sitting there questioning your sanity as to why you're sitting watching this stuff on a cold day in November, we've managed to get the 3 points. I mean, in terms of the offside, I mean, I'm in line with the 18-yard box towards the Cortland Road end in the Govan Weir. It looked tight. I mean, all of us were sort of no sure, but we've been on the wrong end of so many VAR calls that we thought if it's going to be tight, then we're not going to get it. But it turns out it wasn't tight at all. You know, I mean, it was clearly onside. So yeah, we needed it, and sometimes, you know, especially for a club in our position where, you know, we've had a really rough start to the season. You know, it's been horrific, really. You know, I mean, it's been a really, really poor start. To win, you know, the fourth game in a row. You know, I don't think we'd even won 2 games in a row under Russell Martin. You know what I mean? So we've won 4 in a row now. We're building up a wee bit of momentum. Hopefully that builds a bit of confidence within the group. And some of these players, as I said earlier on, have been sort of playing within themselves a wee bit and look a little bit nervous and are always playing the safe pass rather than trying to, you know, create and do something a wee bit more exciting. It's results breed confidence, and confidence breeds further results. If you know what I mean. If you just build up a bit of momentum, then you never know where you end up. You know what I mean. You could end up in a run that puts you with a right chance of you sort of winning this league. I do think Rangers have got a chance. I really do. I mean, I think if we hold off, stay close enough to Hearts and Celtic until January and get solid enough, you know, recruitment in 2 or 3 key areas, then who knows what will happen. But yeah, it was just good to get the goal. You know what I mean? And it's, as I said, it's another step. It's another win, and it just builds. I mean, I quite liked seeing some of the stuff during the international break there that Danny Rohl was doing with the staff at the club. You know, he was going around every department, meeting people and stuff like that. The stuff that he'd done at Dundee, you know, it was a bit Jurgen Kloppish, you know, going up to the support and all the rest of it. But you can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to build a spirit within the club and trying to reconnect the club with the fan base, and just to try and get something going, just to try and spark something, because it's been such a poor start to the season. You know, there's been protests against Russell Martin, Thelwell, Patrick Stewart. You know, there's just this feeling that, okay, we're maybe not Celtic AGM shambles, but we're, you know, there's a level of unhappiness within the fan base at certain people within the club. And it seems to me that Rohl's not only trying to fix things on the field and get something going there, he's also trying to mend some of the divisions between the fan base and the club and the players. So I like some of that. And again, that all helps. You know what I mean? If everyone within the club feels part of it, feels on board, and feels that they're being included and part of this sort of mission that Danny Rohl's here for, then, as I said, you just never know where you end up. You know what I mean? If he's building a sort of positive environment within Ibrox and within, you know, the training centre and stuff like that, then who knows where it takes us.
And I think, Jamie, we were on, you made your debut just after Danny Rohl's first game. We were on together, and I'm just wondering if your opinion of him's changed since then on him. I mean, for me, I think it's been, certainly domestically in the league, it's been a really, really promising start from him. You know, 4 wins in the bounce, which is a far cry for the form that we're shown when he took over. I think for me now, it's what are the realistic expectations for him in the team over the next kind of 3 or 4 games? Because like Colin said, before he came in, I think a lot of us probably wrote off the league and was like, we're so far behind and so far out of form, there's no chance that we are ever going to get back into this. All of a sudden, 4 wins on the bounce, you know, Hearts have begun to stumble a little bit. Them across the city aren't exactly firing on all cylinders. There's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel that we can claw this back. And if we can continue to win games, then there's a good chance that we can be close enough to hopefully get the recruitment right in January and bring a bit more stealing experience to kick on after the New Year break. What do you think we can realistically hope for with him as manager, and what's your kind of thoughts on the first few weeks that we've had under him?
I like the way he comes across. I think he's recognised that there's been ill feeling between the last head coach and Russell Martin. Simply because that was just a disaster. It was a scenario that carried on for too long, and the board should have dealt with that a lot sooner than they did. But it kind of spilled over and got a bit ugly. And I think he's recognised that if you get the fans on side, it's a massive help. The Rangers fans will be on side. If they started seeing an improvement, there's no doubt that they'll get behind the manager. They never had that behind Russell Martin because they never seen any improvement in any department over a couple of 2 or 3 months that he was in charge. In fact, it was just getting worse, bad to worse most weeks. And as I said, that scenario went on far too long in my view. However, I think he's recognised that. I think he knows that, he has to get the fans on side. And to get the fans on side, you need to win games. Simple as that. And I think he's recognised that. He's got them on side. He's won 4 games in the spin in the league. As I said, I'm not getting carried away because I'm looking at the opposition and their games we're expecting to win. There's no doubt about that. I thought he could have been a wee bit more positive in the semi-final against Celtic in terms of his selection. And there was a couple of players, to be honest, I thought it was probably the first time I questioned his substitutions at times. So I thought they were quite decent this season. I think he made some decisions quite well. I think in the semi-final, I think anybody watching that game, there was 2 players in particular could have been dragged at half time. One was Giga, and the other was our pal up front, who, was having a bit of a shocker in front of goal. He could have changed that at half time for me. So I'm still not convinced. I think the fixtures have been kind to him in the league. As I said, we've played the 3 teams at the bottom of the league, so we've got to, keep our feet in the ground. But listen, if you would have said to me 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, we'll win 4 league games in the bounce, I'd have bit your hand off. But we need to go and improve now, and it's going to be a real test going into the games coming up because we're going into some difficult games, and a run of games. It's going to be a real test for him. We need to get the centre back right. I hope Sterling's maybe coming back fit to get us more solid. I think if he keeps getting 3 points over the line, I don't think, to be honest. Obviously, we all want to see them playing great football and more attractive football and winning games convincingly. But I think every Rangers fan at this moment in time will take a win every week, even if it's ugly, up until January window. And then we need to look at replacing what we need. And we definitely need a bit of experience in the centre-back area. We need a bit of steel in midfield. Somebody that's got a presence in midfield, just to go and let Raskin do his thing. I think Raskin will probably go. I'm hoping he doesn't go in January. I think he's got one eye on that, personally. I know there's 1 or 2 clubs sniffing about him. And I think that's probably why he's just not on it for what he was at the beginning of the season. And last season, he's not the same player. I think he's getting sidetracked. But I hope Rangers hold out till the summer, clearly, because the finances will do the club well. If he goes to the World Cup with Belgium, which he will do, he's been playing excellent for them. I think we'll get a real good amount of money for him in the summer. I hope Rangers hold out to the summer because we could really do with getting a quality centre back. We need a spine through the team, a spine of leaders, somebody at the back that can lead from the back, somebody in the middle of the park, and we definitely need a number 9 up front, somebody that can go and hold the ball up and do a bit of business in front of goal. But I'll tell you, there's just some players going about. I mean, I'll tell you somebody I'd go for the now. And Rangers would get him for pennies. I'd let him go and get him. Get his game against St Mirren. St Mirren v Celtic in the cup final. And Gogic, that plays for St Mirren, I'm telling you, I've seen him half a dozen times in the flesh this season. Apart from Carter Vickers, he's probably the best centre back in the league. Hands down. He's a leader. He's somebody that we need at the back. He goes and wins everything, dominant in the back. And I think somebody like him next to Fernandez, or our centre backs that are playing, will communicate to them and boss them about and tell them where to be. We need somebody like him at the back. And I'll tell you what, you could go and get him for pennies in January.
Yeah, there's been a few folk that have mentioned him, and again, he would probably almost be like a Marvin Andrews-esque type signing, wouldn't he, Colin? In that ilk, that you maybe know the most
He's a better
fancy name in the
footballer,
world. Aye,
He's a better
maybe know
footballer, I tell you.
maybe know the most fanciful name, but you know what you're going to get for him, which is a strong centre half who's going to
Aggressive,
put his
desire.
body in the line.
Yeah, need it big time.
Yeah, I mean, someone like that is maybe what we're needing. You know what I mean? Someone, they have been a bit soft at the back. There's no doubt about it. We've been I don't think we've had a really commanding centre half since Connor Goldson. I mean, I think Suter was a downgrade on Connor Goldson, and
Yeah.
it's been a problem for us for a while now. So I mean, as a long-term option, I don't know if I would be looking at Gogic, but as someone to come in and sort us out now and strengthen us at the back, then who knows? I mean, I don't think he could do much worse than some of the boys that we have in there at the moment. So yeah, I suppose we'll just need to wait and see what comes in January. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that Danny Rohl himself, when you think of the clubs that he's been involved with, he's been involved at Leipzig, Bayern, and all that kind of. You would like to think that he's, got a network of people that he can contact and get us some really good options in at centre half, midfield, striker, all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping we can tap into some of that. Obviously we're a bit suspicious of Thelwell and his judgment at the moment. He's not really covered himself in glory so far, but maybe he's learning on the job. Maybe he's learned now, because you kind of get the feeling. I mean, the Chermiti deal alone is just such a strange deal, because for Everton to spend 20 million on a player that doesn't score a goal, 20 million to them, to a club in the Premier League, isn't a huge amount of money. They can afford to spend 20 million on a player and see how he turns out. A project, and hopefully he'll come good. You'll get a rake of goals out of him, and you sell him on for a fortune. If you're signing a player for Rangers for 8 million, he has to be the best player in the Rangers team. Yeah. It's as simple as that. He has to be our best player. If you're spending that level of money on a player, not only should he be the best player on our team, there's an argument to say he should be the best player in Scotland. If you're spending that level of money. To spend 8 million on a player who, up until he scored a few weeks back there, he hadn't scored a competitive senior goal in like 3 years. And don't get me wrong, again, I think there's signs there with Chermiti. You can see there might be a player there. He obviously has to work on aspects of his game, but I think that there could be a player there. But that's not the sort of player you spend 8 million on. It's the sort of player you get for free, and you give him some time in the youth team, and you try and introduce him to the first team and see how he gets on. To spend 8 million on him it's just madness, really.
And when you also consider the fact that we spent the best part of £4.5 million on Oscar Cortez as well, it also shows that it's not just the current setup that wasted money.
It's 6 million for Danilo. You know what I mean? And you're looking at, all the players that we've been sort of criticising tonight, it's the majority of the players that are getting the criticism are either the stalwarts that have been there for a number of years, like your Tavs and your Raskins, or the new guys. Danilo just seems to go unchecked. You know what I mean? It's just like, this guy cost us 6 million. You know what I mean? And you're not getting anywhere near that in terms of value for money. So we've wasted a lot of money in the last.
The list goes on, Colin.
Yeah,
the list goes on. There's numerous players that you've gone for big money there, and you're still going and you're scratching your head thinking, how's he worth that?
Yeah.
And you're not getting any return. It's happened before, the recruitment. It's been happening for over a decade. It's just not been good enough, the recruitment. I would, if I could give the club any advice, I would honestly, there was far too many players brought in at one point this season. Too many. Doesn't work. I would have gone with three players, marquee signings, no more than that, right through the spine, centre back, centre midfielder, striker, and I'd have done the same the following season. And I've probably kept a nucleus of 5 or 6 of the players that's in the squad at the moment. I don't think there's still 6 or 7 for me. Not Rangers class. They should be going. Within 2 seasons.
The problem there, though, Jamie, is we've got so many players on loan as well. You know what I mean?
I know,
so that's
ridiculous.
That means
they've all got to go.
Year on year, it's hard to plan how you're going to recruit and who you're going to bring in when, you know, a good percentage of the players are only there for, you know, a year. You know what I mean? So listen,
you cannot have 5 loans all in one season, right? The only one I'd keep Moore. The rest can go.
I don't think we'd have any chance of keeping Mikey Moore. Unfortunately, they'll be given the fee that Spurs would want for him. But
no, I'm saying, but I'd keep him on loan.
Yeah,
I'd gladly keep him on loan, without a doubt, because he's got something about him, and we need somebody that can create something in the final third, who can turn a game in its head. But all the other signings that are on loan, nowhere near it for me.
No, absolutely. And just to finish off the Livi game, this wasn't even on my radar during the game, to be honest, but it wasn't until afterwards. So we need to talk about a little bit of VAR controversy. So I'm going to get an opinion from both of you, and then I'll come back with my own thoughts. But it was obviously the Fernandes block of the Livi shot, and the ball allegedly hitting off his hand after it hit off his thigh. I guess, Colin, I'll come at you first, but what was your view on that live? And I guess looking back at it, pen or no pen?
Oh, I think it's a penalty. At the time, again, where I'm sort of situated in the Govan rear, was it Fernandes that handled it? Yeah. So Fernandes had his back to me, so I saw the ball going past him, and it didn't come out the other end. If you know what I mean, the ball changed direction, and so where I was sitting, you know, everyone around about us was like, there's only one thing that could have hit there to stop it in its journey towards the goal, and that was his hand. That said, only one Livi player was appealing for it. You know what I mean? There wasn't a huge outcry for it. So just kind of let it go, and you thought, right, okay, and there was no VAR check, or there was, obviously they'll have checked it, but they've not asked for an on-field review. But when I seen the videos last night, when I got home last night, and I was having a wee scroll through Twitter, and I seen the videos, and I seen the argument against it is it takes a deflection off his thigh before it hits his hand. I can't see that deflection. And before we came on air tonight, Frankie was saying that he's seen a video that shows you the ball changing direction. All the views I've seen it, I don't see the ball changing direction. So, you know, I think we've got away with one there, but I would argue it's probably the first one we've got away with. You know what I mean? We've had a few go against us this season, and it further supports what we've been sort of arguing over the last few weeks, that the standard of refereeing is just atrocious. You know, there was a handball incident a few weeks ago against Hearts with Shankland when they scored that goal against us.
Yeah.
And not only is it a blatant handball, right, and VAR doesn't pick up on it, it doesn't even celebrate scoring the goal. And you can see him saying to his teammate, I handled that, right? And yet they still come to the decision. They still come to the wrong decision. And for all he gets a bit of stick, and you know, he gets a sort of Mickey taken out of him a wee bit. I thought Martindale hit the nail on the head a few weeks back. You know, when he was talking about the cost of VAR to the clubs. You think of clubs like Livi, and obviously we're playing Falkirk at the weekend. You know, clubs that don't have a huge amount of income. You know what I mean? They're spending a lot of money to try and get a system in place that improves the decision making, and it's not. It's every week on Sky, every Monday morning, you get Dermot Desmond going through a whole list in Scotland and England, decisions that are just getting called wrong, and everyone else seems to see it. Everyone who's watching the game at the time watches the VAR replay and comes to a conclusion, yet VAR come to a different conclusion. So, yeah, I would argue that since, who's the head of referees again?
Well, Colin.
I would say that since he's taken post, the standards got worse. The amount of errors is actually increasing, and it becomes so frustrating and a bit patronising that every few weeks he comes on the telly and says, really sorry, we'll try and improve it. And then they repeat that cycle. And then in a few weeks later, he just does the same thing again. So it's just not acceptable, really. You know what I mean? If you're a Livingston fan, you'd be raging at that yesterday. But as I said, we've been on the wrong end of quite a few this season, so we know how they feel.
Jamie, any other thoughts on that one, mate?
I think we got out of jail free card there.
No.
Big time. My initial thought straight away. I didn't even need a second look. Oh, it's a penalty, 100%. You can tell with Fernandes' body language. He was like, he's hit his hand. He's kind of half looked at the ref. He's half looked at it, and he's went, no, I'm in it here. I think he was fully expecting the referee to point to the spot. We get out of jail, as I said, free card there. But listen, sometimes these things even out over the season. But how the Livingston players have not been on the ref there to even look at that is beyond me. If that was the other way around, I'm sure all the Rangers players would have been right on the referee. Clear penalty for me. We got away with it. We got away with it.
And I think like Colin said, I mean, it's the one thing that I've been really critical of our officiating up here is that it's not just decisions that go against Rangers. It's decisions that are generally baffling when you actually look at it on the replays and you hear them talking about how they get to these decisions. The big frustration that I've got with this is, like Colin says, Willie Collum will come on his wee YouTube and Sky show and say, yep, we got it wrong and we'll put our hands up and we'll promise to do better. There's no punishment or kind of outcome for these referees and VAR operators when they make wrong decisions. They maybe get taken out for a week, but then they're back in and they're in the pool. And ultimately, you've got two people. You've got Willie Collum, who's head of referee and who's overseen a massive decline. I agree with you, Colin. I think if we want to have a better product on the pitch, we need to have a better standard of officials refereeing and officiating in the game. And the other culprit that you've got is he's probably seen more. He's probably, you could call him the invisible man, is Doncaster. Doncaster's the man that's responsible for packaging this game up and selling it to broadcasters. And if that's the kind of level of officiating we're receiving in it, and the quality that we've got in this game, it's nigh on impossible to increase the TV revenues for clubs that are paying for this as a system. So surely to God, we've got to, clubs in Scotland have got to start to come together on this issue and say, look, this is terrible across the board and we need proper kind of punishments for referees that continue to make the same type of mistake over and over and over again, and have a proper kind of demotion and promotion for officials, because at the moment it's just no good enough, is it?
Well, see the worst example, Rob, what you're talking about when you hear the VAR conversation. I think the worst example we've seen of that was when Diomande was sent off at Tannadice, when the VAR are actually steering Nick Walsh to the right decision. And he just basically goes, well, fuck yous, I'm sending him off anyway. That is essentially what he does. That whole conversation is, Nick, there's no enough in it. It doesn't tick any of the boxes. There's no malice. There's no force in the contact. There's no this. There's no that. No, but he raises his hand, so I'm sending him off. So you're like, well, what's the point of VAR? What is the point if you've got a referee? Now, I know we sometimes like to see referees be strong and stick by their decision, but when it's as blatant as that, I mean, he is literally the only guy in that whole stadium that saw that as a red card. And when he's two VAR officials are supporting him and telling him, you've got this wrong, he's so pig-headed and stubborn, he sticks with his original decision. And if that's what you're up against, as you say, and there's no punishment for Nick Walsh for that, then it'll just rinse and repeat. You know what I mean? Nothing will change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's nice that we've got a little bit of a break, Jamie, from Scottish officials, and we go to the nice, calm, cool, collected Europa League with the international officials that we sometimes get, and obviously they can just be as good as the domestic ones. But we've got Braga up next, and I guess this is where it's a question of priorities, I guess, because ultimately we've had some decent results against Braga over the years. A couple of really good comebacks, beating them on aggregate. But we are so far away from that Europa League Thursday night Rangers team at the moment.
That seems light years away of recent times. And
it's a bit more
it was always a delight a Thursday night coming. You were always like a bit excited. You go, oh, here we go again. Let's get on this roller coaster. And it was always a fantastic experience going to Ibrox. And, the fans and the noise and, the expectation was always, we're going to turn whoever turns up tonight, we're going to turn them over. But listen, we all know it's been disappointing this season. And I think it highlights how we've been in terms of where we're at. We have to be realistic and say where we're at the minute is we're miles off it. We need to keep plugging away in the leagues as we will, but Braga will be a test. Listen, I think they're sitting, if my memory serves me right, I think they're sitting 7th in the league. 4 wins, 4 draws. They've lost 3. They're beatable. See, listen, it's a 2-horse race. You get Ibrox, but I'd like to see the fans really get some noise on a Thursday night again, because everybody knows we've played 4. We've scored 1 goal. We've got no points. We're sitting bottom of the pile of a 36 league. To be fair to Braga, they're sitting 5th in that league. They've won 3 and only lost 1. So when you look at that, there's 31 places between us. It's going to be a test, as I said, but I think it's an ideal chance to give people minutes and have a look. If I was him in a minute, as in the coach, Danny Rohl, I'd be really looking at this and saying, look, what do I want out of this season? I'd be wanting to try and win 3 points every week for the league, get to January, try and sort out what's wrong with the team, get some new players in, bed them in, and really push Celtic and Hearts all the way to the line. Maybe get a Scottish Cup run. The Europe, I'd definitely use it for getting guys minutes, and I'd be looking at getting players minutes under their belt, and really maybe looking at other systems to see where they're at. And the guys on the bench, as I said, the likes of Connor Barron, Cameron, and these guys, Curtis, give them some game time and see how they fare. And if they do the business, it's up to them to take their chance. Then they get a chance on a Thursday night. They might get thrown in against the game on a Sunday against Falkirk. I hope he does that, because there's some guys on that bench, and particularly Connor Barron and the likes of Cameron and that, they've, for me, have kind of not got enough minutes for me. And I think they two should be getting more game time, for definitely.
I guess, Colin, like Jamie says, European competition at this moment in time where we are is probably a bit more of a distraction than we need. And I guess as long as we don't go in and get a repeat of Bruges away, it's probably a good time for Danny Rohl to use it to give a bit of rotation to players, bring them in, give them some minutes. But the focus has surely got to be on that league rather than the European competition. Or do you still hold out hope that a result in Braga could kickstart us and we can qualify for the latter stages?
I mean, I would argue that while it's mathematically possible, you should still be trying. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, obviously, Europe's been a disaster this season. I mean, we've been blessed over the last few years. We even got a final at it. You know what I mean? On numerous occasions, because round about when Steven Gerrard arrived at the club, that's when my son had kind of just got his first season ticket, like the season before. That was his sort of first era, coming of age kind of thing. He was starting to go to the games regular. And I had to say to him on more than one occasion, on the Thursday night, it's not normally like this, by the way, but we're normally out before Christmas. And so for like 5 years in a row, I was saying, just this could be the year it all goes tits up. And we just kept on going, and we kept going. Even last year, we got to the quarter final. But this season, it never ever felt. I mean, I thought Russell Martin would have worked domestically. I thought he'd have got his challenge in domestically. I always worried with the European side with him, just the way he was so open in terms of how he set up. I thought teams at that level would pick us off far too easily, and that's kind of how it's been so far. But it gives it's almost like a free hit for Danny Rohl. It gives him a chance to just there's no so much pressure on the players. They can just go out and ask them to do a job, and hopefully one or two of them can try and play into some form and all that kind of stuff. And and if the results don't go our way, then it does give them the opportunity to do what you guys are talking about. Just getting boys in there and seeing how it works. But while it's mathematically possible, I think we should be still trying to sort of qualify from this group, although it's looking extremely unlikely. But the European thing's been it's been a bit of a disaster this season. But we've been long overdue it. To be fair, we've been in the land of milk and honey for a good few years on that front.
Well, hopefully it can maybe be a night that gets Ibrox rocking again, and we maybe get a wee flashback to some of those glorious nights on a Thursday where we.
I mean that 3-2 game just before COVID, that was a great night. I mean that really was. I remember going into work the following morning for that game, and guys that weren't at the game were like, "Oh, what was it like?" At 2-0, we thought we were done and all the rest of it, and obviously the Aribo goal as well. I mean, Aribo's goal was an absolute joy. So yeah, I think it'll be hard to get a night like that, but you never know.
Well, we can but hope. I guess that's us just over the hour, but I want to say a massive thank you to both my guests tonight. Colin, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Jamie, great to talk to you again, mate. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Colin. Rob, thanks for your time. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's hope we go and get a wee result on Thursday night and then go into our game. You take 3 points against Falkirk. And Falkirk are the one place behind us in the league, so be nice to get another win. Absolutely. So, as well as being live on YouTube tonight, folks, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms. That's iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, etc. As well in the coming days. Craig and Ross are going to be back with you on Friday night to review the Braga game and look ahead at the game against Falkirk at the weekend. All that's left for me to say is a massive thank you to all those that are watching live on YouTube and to those who are listening back again. Thanks very much and good night.